Circle is going public, big banks are launching its stablecoins, and Sui just suffered a $223 million hack. Plus, we're going to talk about Trump's dinner. We're going to show you what all this means for the market, how it affects you as an investor, as a builder, and where the smart money is moving next. As always, joined by Mike. Together, we are Mick and Mike. How's it going, man?
Good, man. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
Memorial Day weekend was good. Spent time with the family and traveled to Vegas because I'm here for the Bitcoin conference. Bold prediction, Mike. Bold prediction. I think that Bitcoin would hit a new all-time high just for this week. I think there's going to be some big news coming out of the conference. What do you think?
It'd be funny to kind of see the price of Bitcoin correlated to the conference every year. Maybe history has said that it's done well after the conference, during the conference. So hopefully that's the case this year.
Well, I don't know if you recall, but 4 years ago during the Bitcoin conference, the president of El Salvador announced that there will be taking Bitcoin as a form of payment. A huge step was taken during that conference 4 years ago. And looking at the price right now, at the time of this recording, we're sitting a little bit over 110,000. So, hey, it can happen. It's not so bold, right? If we go to 113, 112, I hit the bold prediction,
There
right?
you
Call
go.
me an expert. No, just
Just
kidding.
I'll join your paid group after that happens.
That's right. All right, Mike, let's get into it. Let's talk about Circle, USDC Circle. They have plans to go public.
We've talked about this before. They wanted to go public earlier this year, and then they held off. I think primarily because they had no idea what was going on with all the tariffs and the economy. This is back in April. They actually been trying to go public since 2021 through through an a SPAC back in the day. That fell through, and now it seems like it's actually happening. They're filing for IPO on the New York Stock Exchange. The price is expected to be between $24 and $26 a share, which would equate to a valuation of around $5.7 billion. And, this is interesting because they were in talks with both Coinbase and Ripple last couple of weeks about being acquired for around $5 billion. So it looks like this is coming up a little bit above that. But everyone was talking about how Coinbase was such a natural landing point because of their partnership over USDC. And just Coinbase is essentially the distribution partner for USDC, and they actually make a ton of money off that partnership. So that would have been a very natural landing place, but looks like they are going for the public markets.
And along those lines, Mike, we also have major banks that are thinking about launching joint stablecoins. We're talking about JP Morgan, Chase, we're talking about Bank of America, Citigroup. I mean, these are huge names.
Yeah, yeah, the big, they're trying to get in on the party, right? You're talking about the largest banks in the U.S. And this is caused by a couple of things. One is this improved regulatory landscape. Something that we didn't quite go over. The Genius Act actually got through the Senate in the second through the second vote. This is back in May 19th, so just over a week ago. So that was a huge huge movement in regulation, and I think now the banks are looking to take advantage of that. And we just talked about the success of USDC, and we're looking at all the stablecoin adoption. There's just increased competition from crypto firms that are taking a lot of payment processing volume away from some of these banks. So they want to get in on the party. The regulatory landscape seems ripe for them to do that, and let's see what they come up with. Is it something that's going to be just distributed through their platforms and their accounts? Obviously they've got a lot of customers already. Is this something that's going to go kind of try to go into overall wider adoption across the crypto sphere. We'll see. But, one of the things that at one point was kind of a big deal, but it's kind of got pushed down was how yield bearing stablecoins were essentially not allowed from the Genius Act. And that sucks for crypto people, because that's essentially protecting banks' business models, where they can offer some little form of yield by parking your dollars in their checking and savings accounts. That's kind of the how they lure you in a little bit, and those yields are basically nothing nowadays. But yield bearing stablecoins essentially were left out of the Genius Act, and to a certain extent that protects USDC's business as well, right? You can have some yield on Coinbase, but broadly, natively, there's no yield for USDC. Yield bearing stablecoins are something that I think very highly valuable for crypto natives, and that was not passed through the Genius Act. So a little bit of, okay, we'll support this technology because it's getting adopted, but we're gonna help protect some of these current business models as well. So a little bit of playing both sides by the Senate.
Moving on, Mike, let's talk about this SUI incident. SUI I think, has a lot of potential for the next few years. For those that are not familiar, the Facebook team was working on some things on chain, and they split into two different teams and kind of went away from Facebook. One formed SUI, and the other one, Aptos. Both use the Move language, which is the program language for the smart contracts. And up to this point, it appeared, at least if you're going to follow the price, that SUI has had a little bit more momentum. And, up to this point, they've been considered to be very safe. But there's an exchange, the CETUS exchange, and that exchange actually is not just for SUI, it's for Aptos as well. There was a arithmetic vulnerability that a hacker exploited for the amount of $223 million. And certain part of it was transferred over to the Ethereum network. Is that correct? I want to say
Yes.
like 60 million of it.
Yeah, so 60 mil, essentially the hacker was moving the funds around, trying to get it out of the system. 60 mil was bridged over to Ethereum. Not sure exactly where that has moved since then. But then the remaining 163 million was frozen by SUI validators and ecosystem partners. I think some centralized exchanges, put some flags there. So yeah, so just to kind of clarify, this was a bug in the CETUS protocol and not SUI itself or the Move program language, right? So, but it certainly negatively impacted SUI. They did some things to counteract this, right? The SUI and CETUS offered a combined $11 million bounty for info leading to the hacker's ID of the return of funds. SUI also announced a $10 million ecosystem-wide security upgrade and just kind of overall support, not just specifically for their blockchain, but the protocol is being built on a blockchain. They want to be able to support with some more audits, for some bug bounties, open source libraries, and just overall increase the security of the SUI network. But this kind of calls in this whole debate of centralization of these blockchains, even just the ability of the teams and partners and validators to jump in and freeze those funds. It kind of takes you back to the DAO hack of Ethereum many years back. And just, it's kind of a lose-lose situation, right? You jump in, pull off some kind of centralized move, you're called not decentralized. This is supposed to be a decentralized thing. You're really not supposed to be able to freeze funds in this way. Now, if you don't do anything, $223 million is gone. Your users are screwed. CETUS protocol probably doesn't exist anymore. SUI blockchain, they'll say that, you don't care about your users. Token price goes down, yada, 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 that avalanche happens. So super tough situation, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
So I'll preface by saying this is obviously my own personal opinion, not the opinion of any security firm out there, which we will not be speaking about. I can't blame Sui for doing that as a business decision. We were talking about bringing in billions and if not trillions of money. So how are we supposed to do that if we have these incidents and we're supposed to just be hands off? No other business survives under that. And if someone's going to say, well, Mikhail, this isn't a business, this is blockchain. No, it is a business because at the end of the day, there are founders and we know who those founders are. And if something happens to those founders, you can argue and say nothing is going to happen, but the price will dictate that, right? So unless you're Bitcoin, you are running a business. I mean, that's my personal opinion on that. And so if you're running a business, embrace it fully and say, yes, we are going to take measures to prevent bad actors from exploiting our chain. Simple as that. I know it's not so cut and dry, but I lean towards the centralization model in this case.
The rebuttal to that is like, well, if you can do this, what else can you do? What can you just freeze my funds? If I were to LP into, a DEX protocol and Sui, if I were to LP or, just do some token transfers or just hold some tokens, can you just take that away from my wallet? Yeah, can you censor my transactions? Uh, you know, let's, I'm paying people overseas. Can you just censor my transactions because you don't like the country that I'm paying into? Just I don't know. It is always it's kind of the question for the ages, right?
It's a valid point because you can argue that we're shifting into the very thing that we try to run away from, right? Like the traditional system, the way it was built, we saw flaws and we built out this new technology. And yet here we are kind of
Right.
transitioning and forming back to that same technology that we ran away from. I think that the technology has evolved, but there are some things that remain disadvantages. Meanwhile, Trump media, they're looking to buy $3 billion worth of crypto. And, I've heard Eric Trump talk about Sui before. So I know he's a big fan. I mean, perhaps Sui could be part of this $3 billion investment into crypto. But what are their plans here?
So they're aiming to raise 3 billion, 1 billion through convertible bonds, and 2 billion in equity. And this is the Trump Media Group. This is like the owners of Truth Social. Uh, and there's not much news around this. Just the fact that they're looking to raise a lot of money to buy crypto. I think it seems in the same vein as potentially in the same vein as some of the other corporations raising money, the strategy model. You're seeing now just a lot of other companies with corporate Bitcoin policies and crypto policies. So the issue here is the conflict of interest. And you mentioned Sui. I believe that World Liberty Financial bought a bunch of Sui a few months
That's
ago
right.
for their stockpile. So I think it's just part of that corporate strategy vein of buying crypto. But of course, we're talking about Trump here, talking about the intermingling of interests here.
I know. We've talked about this on multiple episodes, and on that topic, Mike, I
Wait,
know that
he's
some
like the world's greatest crypto entrepreneur. He's this.
yes, he's showing you how it's done, right? Launching a meme token, a private dinner, inviting his people to it. Which,
Yes,
by the
yes.
way, supposedly his dinner was a little bit unimpressive, and the food wasn't that great. Is that true?
I, you know, I don't do any deep investigative reporting. Okay, so I didn't talk to any of the people, but what I've heard was that he was only there for an hour. Um, Kind of said similar stuff that he's been saying about U.S. being the crypto capital of the world, repeating that spiel. I don't think there were any photo ops. I heard the food was not great. There was some overcooked steak there, which is a sin. Um, and there were some protests outside, about the whole conflict of interest. But shortly after the dinner, we saw that the his meme coin actually dumped. There was a lot of the average holdings dropped from 4.78 million during the snapshot to 2.11. So a lot of people either transferred or sold. It fell down. The price of Trump fell 14% the day after the crypto dinner. So people were not impressed. People were not happy, obviously. And it kind of just looks like some people bought to get the dinner, and it was a big nothing burger, and then they sold.
Either that, or you could blame the chef. Maybe once people tried that steak, they're like, "Ooh, yeah, I don't know. I'm selling my Trump token."
Yeah, yeah,
On that note, Mike, so we talk about where the money is going, right? And you're on the VC side, so you see it firsthand in terms of where a lot of the venture capitalists are looking. And so let's talk about these three projects. And let's start with Worldcoin. What are they up to?
yeah. They raised a huge round, 135 million from A16Z Crypto, Bain Capital Crypto, Selene Capital, and others. And look, I think most of us have heard of WorldCoin. They have these orbs. They scan your eyeballs to prove that you're human and not a bot. A lot of people have been orb verified. Looks like 12.5 million. And this was just a straight token buy. And WorldCoin's price popped over 30% after the fundraise was announced. And I think especially in the world of AI, proof of humanity is extremely important. We're talking about the intersection of crypto and AI, solving all of these issues with data provenance, and data collection and usage. But you know, eyeball scanning, is this the best way to do it? It's certainly one way to do it. It seems a little dystopian,
It's a little bit Minority Report
a
if you
little
watched
bit.
that movie
It's
with Tom
very,
Cruise.
very Minority Report. But like, look, you've got Sam Altman is the founder of WorldCoin and obviously the founder of OpenAI. And he's a visionary, regardless of what you think of him. Like he's actually, leading the charge in AI. And um, I think doubt him at your peril. But it is pretty dystopian, right? Like we're getting to this orb that's scanning your eyeballs, and like that's going to be how they identify you. It's we're definitely seeing a science fiction movie play out in front of our eyes.
But everything starts like that. Remember a time when Uber first came about and you were supposed to get into a car with a stranger? What? Like you're always told not to do that growing up as a kid. And so here we are getting into cars with strangers. So I think time changes and what we feel is a little uneasy and weird really changes over time. And that's not to say I feel okay with it. I'm just trying to accept the reality that with time, things evolve and the technology changes, the society. So it's not just about here's a crypto project, watch out for this coin. Just more from the perspective of you see these things play out from a technological perspective, and they're having true implications in terms of like how we function as a society.
Yeah,
So it's just very interesting.
yeah,
Next, Mike, let's talk about Catena Labs.
yeah. So AI is coming for TradFi. Um, Catena is a fully regulated AI native financial institution. They raised an $18 million seed round. Again, let A16Z Crypto with participation from Briar Capital, Circle Ventures, and Coinbase Ventures. So they're building this AI native stack for agents, businesses, and consumers to transact safely and efficiently. Um, they've got this open source agent commerce kit that is building for these agents to be able to make these transactions. You've got identity in there. Identity is extremely important, like you said, with World payments, compliance. The vision again, like we talked about a science fiction movie, is that AI agents will be able to perform transactions on our behalf. If it's something like uh, working with our bank accounts to make bill payments automatically, and or make trades automatically, whatever it might be. Um, Agents are going to carry the load on a lot of that stuff, and they're going after the traditional banks with the AI native financial products. So you look at these large banks and the way they have been slow to adopt the high tech products. And I think this is exactly where Catena Labs sees some white space, and they're building it out, and they got a good bankroll to do that now.
Why don't you think that somebody like Robinhood doesn't come along and does it better? Because obviously they already have the adoption.
That's a good question. It seems like their business model is trading based, right? They make a lot of their money selling their users trading data to other like hedge funds and high frequency trading firms. So I think that business model is going to be a little bit different, but they certainly have a huge customer base that they can leverage if they were to go to that direction. But I think in this case, we're looking at something that is probably more peer-to-peer transaction oriented, and I think that's going to be something that is probably going to take Robinhood a while to be able to build out and learn to do, and pretty big divergence from what they've done and what they've built.
Last but not least, Mike, let's talk about Roxom, which is actually a Bitcoin play.
Yep. So maybe you'll see them in Vegas. They've just raised 17.9 million from Tim Draper, Borderless Capital, Kingsway Capital, and Ego Death Capital. So yeah, there's two main products here. One is Roxom they're developing a BTC denominated securities exchange, and what's pretty interesting is they're also building a 24/7 media network called Roxom TV. They're both built around this whole Bitcoin treasury hot trend that's been happening over the last couple of years. And I really like, obviously they're going to make a lot of money from the security exchange, but I really like this kind of 24/7 media network, right? It's like we always talk about, and we don't know what the content's going to be there, but like we always talk about how there should always be more education and more content in the space. At least I haven't heard of a CNN style media network dedicated to Bitcoin and crypto. You see a lot of YouTube videos, but and obviously Twitter, but you never seen this kind of always on media network. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought about that before as well. So it's interesting that two directions that I guess I wouldn't have thought would be coinciding, but interesting nonetheless. Three projects that are kind of showing the way of what the future looks like, and of course, cover the big news from stablecoins to hacks. We cover everything. And for those that are watching, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, give us a comment and some feedback. What do you like? What stories do you want us to follow more of? And with all that said, Mike, thanks as always for joining. Follow Mike's newsletter that he puts out with Deep Ventures. It's in the description. And we'll catch you guys in the next one.
All right, man. Enjoy Vegas, man. Hit the club, have a
Yeah,
drink for me. Hit the tables for me.
we'll do. Cheers.